the comments for side opposition and an opening statement, not to exceed 8 minutes. First and last minutes of his speech are protected time. Whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, judges, moderator, honorable proposition, we're the opposition, and everybody else here today. Now, we're here today to discuss this resolution that this House would remove Korean conscription as happening in South Korea. Now, before I get into my 2 points, how we believe this is a necessary evil, and how removing or having conscription is a cry for help that elicits a global response, I'd like to get into some rebuttal. First of all, they talk about how conscription is expensive and it costs money that could be used elsewhere. But it's far less expensive than paying professional soldiers to defend their country. And it's essentially, we believe, it is preventing potential genocide, which we believe is a necessary cost. And lastly, how they said that a lot of other countries have a military and they don't have these problems. But that's an inherent problem with a poor state like Korea, rather than conscription itself. Korea cannot financially afford a proper paid army. So they rely on these conscription people to protect their country. Okay, so now to get into my first point, this big point about a necessary evil. Now, North Korea is one of the last communist dictatorships in the world. Although they declare themselves a democratic nation, they have one nation, they have one party, and they are effectively a communist dictatorship. They have shown their hate over the years of South Korea. They have said many threats, and among other things. And the leaders of North Korea have proven themselves to be unstable and unfit as neighbors. And so this puts South Korea in a position where they have seen a history of violence and hate coming from their close neighbors. And they have to rely on people. They can't afford an army to protect themselves. They have to rely on putting this law of conscription there to push people into defending their country. And so we have this problem comes up about people with religions and people that don't want to fight. But this is a necessary evil because the majority of the people will fight and will join the military due to conscription. And this provides for 60% of Korea's current military is based off conscription, 40% based off paid soldiers. And while their goal is to extend to 60% in the next couple of years of paid soldiers, to remove conscription is to strip away the defenses that South Korea has against a very volatile neighbor. And so just plainly removing conscription doesn't help. Potentially making the conditions better would benefit everybody, but Korea cannot financially afford these abilities. They have to deal with what they have. And so the best solution, we believe, is to retain conscription until a better time comes, until people can see that they need help or they become financially stable enough to support a military that can protect them from this threat, or until this threat goes away. But to remove conscription is to effectively doom South Korea, we feel, even if something does not come to pass. It's a preventative measure and a necessary preventative measure, while stopping people from drunk driving. Just because somebody drinks and gets in a car doesn't necessarily mean they're going to crash. But to prevent the potential, we need to stop all drunk driving from happening. Like we need to have these conscripts up there defending Korea. We need to have a strong army to defend against North Korea. And so removing this is putting South Korea in the path of a very volatile and very dangerous neighbor who has proven themselves over history to be very, very violent and not accepting of and not respecting other people's nations. Now, to my second point, how having conscription is essentially a necessary cry for help. If they do not have conscription, if they remove conscription, then South Korea is essentially saying, like, we're okay, we're not in desperate need for soldiers. We have our small, 40% of the army is only 40% of the army is paid soldiers. That's over half their army would go away, and effectively, we'd only have room for people that, administrative jobs and other jobs. If it actually came down to it, when they needed people to help, they needed people to save, people to prevent genocide from happening, they would not have the necessary resources. And while this impacts while the conscription impacts far less people than conscription would save, therefore we believe that this conscription is a necessary thing, And to remove it, like I said, would tell every country that, you know what, we're okay, we're stable, we feel comfortable, when in fact they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel right putting their people in the path of communist dictatorship. And so, we strongly believe that conscription is a very, it's a very important thing for South Korea, and they're a victim of circumstances. So, other countries, like you said, are not, as my partner highlighted, are not next to a very bad neighbor. They're comfortable with where they are, and to take this away, to take away the conscription says we're comfortable with where we are, when they are in fact not. So if we continue to have conscription, people are going to look at it like, it's a very touchy subject. People are noticing it. There's been many articles and many debates about it, and that's good. It needs to generate this thought. It needs to generate this idea. It needs to show people that they're in need. If they no longer have this need, then that's something that's less that's taking away these preventative measures of these damages that could arise. And we believe these are very, very necessary evils and a necessary cry for help that South Korea must have to maintain themselves as a nation, or we feel they could potentially be obliterated, potentially be taken away. So, as South Korea, because we are South Korea, we are looking for the best interests of South Korea, and that is our main goal here today. And so far what we've seen is we haven't seen how removing conscription benefits South Korea. We could put these resources elsewhere. We've shown you that conscription, while told to be expensive, is a necessary expense. It's a much better expense than pouring money to improve the poor state of the people. And that would be great, but we can't do that. We've shown you how we cannot remove conscription. This $10 billion that we're using to pay for the conscripts are actually preventing the potential of genocide. North Korea is, they've done many crazy things. Kim Jong-il actually bombed his school because he was bullied there as a kid, and he's done many other crazy things. His lineage that he says and enforces upon his people is beyond ridiculous. He hasn't shown himself to be a good neighbor, a potential neighbor in the globe, and we need to remain to have a strong hand in this. And that is the best interest of South Korea, because that's who we are. It's a necessary evil that we believe we need to retain to protect our people. While some people may, unfortunately, be damaged by this, it is saving a lot more lives, and necessary lives. So we don't believe that getting rid of conscription outright is the right resolution. Therefore, we are proud to propose. Thank you.
Oppose.
Opposition. Oppose.
Right, well, this round actually took a really long time to adjudicate, and it actually took a lot longer of a time to make a decision. Usually, the decision comes relatively soon, and then the comments take a while. We didn't really get to the individual comments. We just spent that time spending the decision because of some logical connections that were missing, and we had to manufacture, and we had to really dig into the context of what actually was said to find out the relative truth to the round. So ultimately, we decided that after a lot of digging and a lot of looking at the situation from a lot of different ways, we gave this to Otto. We gave it to Otto and we gave it to Brett, but it was extremely, extremely close, and it could have easily been won by the proposition. It required a few sentences, honestly. Needed to be said in the whip speech. So ultimately, what happened was we felt Evelyn came up here. She gave a couple points. A lot of them were relatively good, right? They were effective. And then we felt that she didn't engage with Brett's POI, the one opportunity, and she didn't make any POIs throughout the rest of the round. And then during her whip speech, again there was a little lack of engagement from her, which is problematic. So I'm just going to do the individuals first, I guess, makes sense. So then with Otto's speech, I really felt that the refutation was incredibly weak, and there was just no engagement. I felt, Otto, that you completely opted out of engagement by saying oh yeah, this is ideal, but South Korea doesn't have that kind of money. We have to deal with what we got, right? So anyways, here's why this is the proper allocation of money. I felt that was ridiculously ludicrous, because that's not founded on